Hey, everybody, it's Bill Clayton here, and Limbaugh has graciously let me come in here to start that radio show today because he's got 3 hours, and I know I don't have any chance anymore, and he's graciously, because we got skunked last night. I've been blown away last night, but I just want to say, there's nobody who could have done any better than Obama did last night. I mean, I couldn't have done any better. Jimmy Carter couldn't have done any better. I mean, it all started off that first question. Obama inherited that first question of debate. It was one of the worst questions since the Great Depression, and there's nowhere to go after Stephanie Cutter said it. The moderator blew the whole thing, and I just want everybody to know there's nobody could have done any better.
I think the easiest approach is you take a look at the so-called Fairness Doctrine, right, which basically says that if you're a radio network and you have Rush Limbaugh on, who's a conservative, for 3 hours, you must, under the Fairness Doctrine, have a comparable liberal voice on it 3 hours after Rush to counter what Rush is saying. And here's why the Democrats love the Fairness Doctrine, which is not the law, but they'd like to make it the law. It's because of what happened earlier this week with a liberal radio station called Air America, which went into bankruptcy for the second time. The bottom line is, when Americans are given a choice in the message, a choice in their information, they trust conservatives more than liberals, and that's why Rush Limbaugh makes millions of dollars and Air America is in bankruptcy.
Absolutely.
Well, you either ought to have the Fairness Doctrine or we ought to have more balance on the other side, because essentially there's always been a lot of big money to support the right-wing talk shows, and let's face it, Rush Limbaugh is fairly entertaining even when he's saying things that I think are ridiculous. I never minded having somebody be heard who disagreed with me, but if you only have one side like this blatant drumbeat against the stimulus program, this doesn't reflect the economic reality we're facing.
When you think of talk radio, you probably think of a conservative host, not a liberal one. It's because the conservative hosts are far more popular, and there are many more of them. Carol Costello is here with us now in our latest installment of Talk Radio, and we're talking about the Fairness Doctrine, right? People are saying it's not fair.
That's right. We're talking about the Fairness Doctrine, and we're not. In 1987, the Federal Communications Commission, the FCC, rescinded something called the Fairness Doctrine. It required broadcast companies to present both sides of a controversial issue. Well, since the Fairness Doctrine went away and was repealed, conservative talk boomed on AM radio, and liberal talk faded.
And back now with syndicated columnist Kathleen Parker and Michael Fletcher, who covers the White House for the Washington Post. Well, we wound up that discussion with John Boehner talking about Rush Limbaugh, so let's continue the talk. Mr. Boehner didn't seem to want to touch that.
Yeah, Republicans have learned to keep their mouths shut when it comes to Rush. Otherwise, they might have to apologize to him. But the interesting thing about this is the whole idea that the White House would engage a talk radio host seems fairly unpresidential. I mean, George W. Bush wouldn't even acknowledge other heads of state. But here we are talking about a radio host.
If you ain't listening to Rush, you must be living on the left coast, baby. Gonna eat my lunch and listen to Rush. Gonna eat my lunch and listen to Rush. I wanted to get the sign at the beginning.
Standing down, Rush Limbaugh's fan. Through acquisition, Limbaugh's edition. We'll make some money, enrages honey. We're baking cookies.
Thank you. Hey.
The TIB-1, I'm pulling in.
How you doing there? All right, I'm fine. Nice to see you.
To the past when the customer was king. X features courteous attendance in white shirts and ties and...
Joining us, and Alan Ames, I think you're on...
Hey, they're waving in front there! Yes,
we do. Randy Daniels here with Bill Tyler, and Bill has the people here from Austin. Thank you very much. Oh, they are Americans who have come all the way home just for that.
Okay.
Okay.
under 40-mile traffic jam going to the defense. CNN plan to cover it.
All right.
And that's a different story.
Guys, you're not pressing these buttons on the side. That's your thumb on the button. You press it to turn it on, you press it to turn it off.
Oh, really? Okay, we got to take a break right now for a commercial. I also got to tell everybody that we're listening to the all-new AM 710 KNU.
And Saturday, May 22nd, you won't buy tires for less in Denver. Come to the Firestone Warehouse, located at 8th Avenue and I-25. Over 5,000 tires in stock. Prices start as low
To 9 a.m. on AM 710, the all-new KNUS. If you want they have to walk there. I don't know if there's any buses, but that's about a 3-mile hike. Go to the stadium and parking and taking the pretty.
There it is! Here now.
My friend Bill.
Go fix it. Send it to your boss, your friends.
That's a choice, man.
No mercy.
Hey, Dan. Dan, do you need a new wife?
You guys.
We just hope that you're going to be willing to come off the fence and tell it like it is today. I love all of you, too. I want to tell you a little bit about what you don't know. There's a bus caravan of 7 miles length trying to get into town. There is. We flew over it in the airplane we came in on. There's a EIB-1, that's right. There's a 25-mile traffic jam on the interstate out there. What can happen nationwide if that kind of thinking, reward, opportunity, happiness, and prosperity were talked about rather than doom, gloom, and negativity.
What's the difference?
I'm sorry. This is the Dan that was sending Dan, my husband, the autograph.
We went to Wasp together.
The copies of the
West Oregon State College. Of course, he graduated in 4 years. I've been there for 6 years.
He graduated in 4 years.
Dan Fixell. Silver window. Time. supply is all you need. Where do you get that T-shirt? There's a dumpster up in that party, and he made these little wood pallets that he puts spots on. Put pins in it with super spotted dowels.
Now, we're about halfway through this show, and I can tell you that the liberals watching this show are panicked, and they're eating their hearts out, folks. There isn't a liberal in America who could draw a crowd like this. Politics, broadcasting, whatever, it couldn't happen. Number two, if a liberal did try something like this, can you imagine the endless parade of human debris that would show up? Compared to this, look at these people. These are happy people. These are people engaged in great fellowship. These people, 65,000, let's use that number because it's, I think, pretty close to the total number of people who went through there. No mess, no vandalism, no violence, no civil disobedience, no arrests. The only thing that suffered damage was a couple of potted plants. And you know who did it? Horses. Horses ridden by cops. It was nothing. And compare this to these people. You know, the Earth Day crowd. Those who are out to protect the earth from the people at the bake sale. And you and everybody else, all of you out there, look at Central Park after an Earth Day celebration, or the mall at Washington, compared to Fort Collins, Colorado, after 65,000 conservatives show up. The messes in Central Park and on the mall are filthy. There was no mess in Fort Collins, Colorado. And I'll tell you something, you people who attended not only made me proud, but you confirmed everything I've always thought about good, decent people. You know what the most often used word at this bake sale was? Excuse me. People bumped into each other. You see the pictures, you see the crowds. People could not avoid bumping into each other. But even when they did, oh, excuse me. And it was just, it's amazing. People had their eyes open. This is the kind of thing that needs to happen more and more around this country. Let me show you a couple things that I said while on stage at the bake sale. One of the things I want to show you is, if you saw the NBC report, they had a little clip of me saying, you know what all started this? Caused this? Me. And then they cut away. As though that was the sole content of my message. But it went on, and I want to show you the rest of what I said. Take a look.
Now let me give you a little lesson in something. You know what all caused this? Me. But more than that, it was capitalism. The pursuit of a $29.95 subscription to a newsletter causes all this. It's not a miracle, it's called capitalism. Imagine what can happen nationwide if that kind of thinking, reward, opportunity, happiness, and prosperity were talked about rather than doom, gloom, and negativity. This today is a microcosm of what could be happening all over the world, all over the country, if there was the right kind of leadership.
Boy, it's true, too. I wish you could have been there. Thank you. But let's show you how the media partially treated this. First off, Jay Leno, Thursday night on The Tonight Show.
And Rush Limbaugh? That's going to be attending a conference in Colorado this weekend. You hear about this? It's being called the Conservative Woodstock. Conservative Woodstock. Imagine William F. Buckley with a bullhorn on the towers. All right, everybody, chill out. There's some bad tweed going around. Don't eat the watercress sandwiches, okay? Don't eat the watercress sandwiches.
Now, Saturday night, the networks, I don't think CBS did anything. If they did, I haven't been told about it. NBC did a real nice package to end their newscast, and ABC did one as well on Saturday night. We'd like to show you ABC's. This is from ABC's newscast Saturday night at the dinner hour.
Talk show host Rush Limbaugh, the bane of liberals and the brain of a new movement among conservatives. A man in Fort Collins, Colorado the other day told Limbaugh his wife wouldn't let him spend the $30 to subscribe to Rush's newsletter. Limbaugh said, raise the money with a bake sale. Here's what happened. Today, an estimated 20,000 people showed up in a rainstorm, some from as far away as Florida, to buy Dan Kelly's cookies and to show the world how much they love Rush. Rush Limbaugh. Limbaugh showed up too, and as the sun came out, he called it, what else? A triumphant lesson of capitalism for Mr. Kelly. The spectacle was enough to drive a stake into the heart of liberals all over America.
If Walter Cronkite has been called the most trusted man in America, Rush Limbaugh has been called the most dangerous. And he's proud of it. On 400 radio stations nationwide, more than 7 million listeners a week hear Limbaugh lambasting liberals, railing against the homeless, beating up on feminists, gays, and those he calls peaceniks and environmental wackos. Unhappily, his critics say he's proof that bigotry sells. As you're about to see and hear, Rush Limbaugh is too big to ignore.
If you ain't listening to Rush, you must be living on the left of the coast, baby.
Good evening. Thanks for being here, and welcome to Broadcast Excellence, and a host who's considered by many to be the best talk show host in the business. No, not me, silly. That's my guest, Rush Limbaugh of WABC Talk Radio.
Miggs, how are you?
Good evening.
Thanks for having me up.
Thank you.
Sending a limo. It was class. It was real class.
Well, you deserve it. I guess briefly, I mean, you're known by a lot of people, and why don't you just give us a little capsule background of where you came from and how
Well, I've been a broadcast veteran started in 1967. My father owned a radio station, Cape Girardeau, Missouri, a little town about 100 miles south of St. Louis. And I worked there for 4 years through high school and 1 year at college, and I got an offer from ABC in Pittsburgh, and I went. I quit college after 1 year to take it. I was a DJ from then till roughly 1978.
KDKA? Where'd you go?
KQV.
Oh,
KQV in Pittsburgh. And I left KQV when they sold, ABC sold it to Taft, and all of the DJs there got fired because the Taft people came in and did news with it. I went to Kansas City, and I was there for, actually, Pittsburgh through 75, Kansas City in 75. I was at a radio station there for 3 to 4 years and got tired of it. I was tired of being a DJ. I was tired of not being taken seriously. I was tired of being considered a dope-smoking pothead who knew nothing other than Donny Osmond records. So I went to work for the Kansas City Royals for 5 years in sales and marketing, and that was the best thing I ever did. Because I met people I would have never met. I saw the real world function. You cannot possibly imagine what life's really like if you do it from behind a camera, if you do it from behind a microphone, and you never get out amongst the real world. I never learned any business. You don't learn any business as talent. So after those 5 years, I grew tired of it. It wasn't an ego satisfaction type thing, and I went into spoken word format radio at that point. And I started my first talk show really just 4 years ago. 1 year in Kansas City, then out to Sacramento for 3, and then here.
Yeah, and a rapid rise.
Interesting thing, too, after getting out of the business for 5 years, I was better the first day on the air after being out for 5 years than I was the day I left it after being on for 11 years. It's crazy, but it's. I would recommend anybody who's serious about radio get out of it for a while.
Welcome back. I'm with WABC Talk Radio host Rush Limbaugh, and Lonesome George over here is still not joining in, but if he has anything to say, I'm sure he'll say it. You know, you're basically, I think, politically conservative, and I'm not at all. But I found, you said one thing that I found had an immediate alliance with you, and it superseded any political views, that you dislike country music.
Oh, I detest it. The steel guitar and the lyrics that go with that. I mean, and you know, that's among the most popular forms of music in the country. I just detest it. It's great music to make fun of, the lyric lines that you can run into, but no, it's.
I just found it. My wife loves it, but we always have arguments about that. I just found it interesting. It's sort of up to that point, you know, I was angry at you when I heard you say that. It was like I found a friend.
Well, you know,
you are pro-life. You are against abortion.
I am.
Under any circumstances.
In order to be intellectually honest and consistent,
you
yes.
can't make an exception. So rape, incest, the baby's a baby, a life's a life, you're pro-life. You're not concerned about the kind of Gestapo we're going to have knocking these doors down if it ever gets to be illegal.
No, again, if I may have just a little time to
well, how much time?
Oh, it shouldn't take more than that. Is this an indication, Phil, that you really don't want my version of it?
Well, we got a lot of very thoughtful people here.
Well, but if they are thoughtful people,
sir, you'll make your point. Believe it or not, we're still a commercial program as well, so we've got other responsibilities. You have the floor, sir. Pro-life. Make your point.
I have now. If you would rather play the commercials,
no.
Leave. I mean,
go, do.
My point about abortion is not based upon my desire to force my view on anybody or my will on anybody. And my view on abortion is not contained to abortion. My view is actually one based upon a reverence for the sanctity of life, which I'm concerned is being cheapened in America, not just in the womb, but in other areas. We now have the right to die in this country, but as it's being practiced, it's right to kill. We are deciding who lives and dies based upon the convenience to us. And I'm very much concerned as a citizen and as a member of the human race that the legacy we leave succeeding generations is going to be devalued to the point that other areas of society are going to suffer as well. I think rising illegitimacy, I think rising crime rates, Look at what's happening in New York City at Thomas Jefferson High School. When you and I went to school, we might have had arguments with people. It never crossed our mind to shoot somebody. But it's now no big deal for a kid to shoot another kid in New York or a lot of other cities. And I think it's because they think life is cheap. And I'm very much concerned that life be revered and sanctified. Now, my point on pro-life, Roe versus Wade and so forth, so I'm not misunderstood. I think Roe versus Wade is going to be overturned. It's bad law. But so what? If it is, all that means is that the American people will decide this in a democratic way, as it should be. I don't believe that the founding fathers of this country intended for the document they wrote, based upon life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, was intended to allow the killing of babies in the womb. I think they'd turn over in their graves if they thought that, something they wrote has been interpreted that way. So, very close to the end here. So, I think that if there's this mass movement for abortion, if there's a mass movement for pro-choice, then put it to a vote, the democratic fashion. What are they afraid of to do that? I find the fear that they have somewhat curious until you look at the facts, and the facts are that it's not a mass appeal issue. I've got to.
That was the meat out.
No, I have to extend the umbrella here so you understand the whole point, the philosophy of what I do. I like to illustrate absurdity by being absurd.
I tax you, you pay me. Let's create more dependency.
Hi, President Aristide. It's your best pal, Bill Clinton. I know once you get settled in, you're going to need some help running for re-election. Now, I'm not doing much this weekend, and I'd be glad to come down there and help you campaign. Hello? Hello?
Mario Cuomo. He was the first American to praise New Jersey Governor Jim Florio for raising taxes in New Jersey. Mario Cuomo, his solution for the Iraqi invasion of Kuwait was give Saddam a few islands. Mario Cuomo, he came up with community rates on health care. Even the Democrats in Congress called it a disaster. Mario Cuomo, he punished the rich by driving New York's bond rating to the second worst in the country. Mario Cuomo, he's liberal and proud of it.
Paid for by Rush Limbaugh, Cuomo for Governor Committee.
So now the liberals have to boycott Cuomo, see? I'll tell you, this is more fun than a human being should be allowed to have. I've wanted to show you this for the past couple days. We haven't been able to squeeze it in, but I made time on this show. You know, the mainstream press, I predicted it. They're going to do everything they can in the next 3 weeks to resuscitate Clinton and the Democrats for the election. They're all running around, the people inside the Beltway, asking themselves why Clinton didn't get any credit for all the good things he's done. And Leslie Stahl, who's now with 60 Minutes, but she's been a White House correspondent for CBS News, was on Tim Russert's show on CNBC. And this is, I guess it's predictable, but at the same time, it's unbelievable. Here's what she says about the problem the president is having getting his message out.
Poor Bill Clinton, I say this. I know this White House whines about this constantly, but I must say they have a point. It isn't just that there's CNN. Now they have all the kinds of talk shows, like this one, and radio talk shows, and cable, and such a proliferation of news sources that they can't get anybody's attention anymore. They just can't. On top of everything else, when Carter was president, and Reagan, and they knew that 3 networks had the total audience, they could say, I'm going on television, I want to talk to the country. And they would, and the whole country was wired into them. If the president spoke, you couldn't see anything else on television. Today, if Clinton wants to speak to the nation, when you don't want to hear him, you can watch ESPN, you can watch a movie, you can watch a cartoon. You do not have to watch him, and a lot of people don't. He's having much more trouble
breaking through the clutter,
communicating, getting his message right. He whines about it, but he's right.
Well, there you have it. The President of the United States has just had a defender of his whining. Now, let me tell you what this is all about, folks. It isn't complicated at all. Leslie Stahl used to be a newswoman on one of 3 networks, and the 3 networks were all you had to get information. And then the marketplace spoke up. The marketplace in news is that the people of this country were no longer satisfied with what the networks were telling them, because it was the same thing. ABC, NBC, CBS, didn't matter where you tuned, you got the same stuff. And it was always anti-Republican, anti-conservative, and pro-liberal and pro-Democrat. And then along came talk radio and cable talk and a number of other options, and people began to have choice and diversity in news analysis, and are simply exercising the choice. And these people are just upset they don't have a monopoly anymore. They're upset that she doesn't have the power to bend and shape your mind like she used to, because there are other people out there who I think are actually doing the network's jobs for them. The networks have become shills more than anything else. They're willing accomplices with the administration, especially when it's Democrats. And this is just the free market at work. And there's no reason why news should not be considered something as free market as any other consumer product is. These people wouldn't agree with that. They think it's so important. The news, the press, why, without us, there wouldn't be a nation. The First Amendment, why, we are the sole guarantors of your freedom. Do you know that? That's why you should believe what we tell you, not what Limbaugh tells you. Hell, he's a talk show host. We are practicing journalists. Yeah. You want to listen to Sam the Sham Donaldson, or you want to listen to me? Thanks so much. Before we go, I feel in a feisty, stir-it-up mood. Let's irritate the feminists one more time before we get out of here.
When you read the New York Times, people think you like to read about the UN Security Council and congressional subcommittees, when in fact, a lot of our readers prefer to read about entertainment.
Though I find their reviews to be a little too opinionated.
The New York Times. Read what you like.
We are talking about a reorganized, reformed insurance.
She keeps on meddling. She keeps on interfering. She keeps on meddling.
What about when you say feminists are ugly women who need dates?
I never said that. Well, I'll give it to you. I once wrote in a newspaper column I had, the 35 Undeniable Truths of Life. Number 24, feminism was established so as to allow unattractive women easier access to the mainstream of society. But you know, I think one of the things that, look, Barbara, this is nobody, I try to explain this, I don't know how many times.
I don't know why people don't understand it. It seems so simple.
Now, but see, I have been aided and abetted by this continued misrepresentation of what a feminazi is, and by the continued misrepresentation of what my views on women are. I am perceived as hating women.
Do you?
No, I love women.
And that's the truth. Let me tell you.
The guy that had this 99.9% of scientists agree. Who is? There's purely untrue, bogus. And the guy that said that was Sink Uger. I don't know what a Sink Uger is.
We have a little animal segment that we're going to start the program with tonight, knowing full well that many of you out there love animals. In the first little instance, there's another dog racing out there that's been named after me. This dog is named Code Rush, and the dog races at the Phoenix Greyhound Park out in Phoenix, Arizona. And Code Rush is a winner. Code, why don't you start? Look at this is a story that ran in the newspaper out there. Top of the day, even the liberals love this Rush. He didn't quite talent on loan from God, but Code Rush, named for conservative commentator Rush Limbaugh, usually pays off liberally. I heard some hisses. So let's show you the latest race, Code Rush, from Phoenix Greyhound Park. Here it is.
And they're off, and the break. That's the fall.
Horse number one. Horse one. Horse number one.
Final turn one. Coverage down the side lead. 5
There it goes.
1 5 and 4 with the 5. Kansas.
Look at that, he's holding on, and it's a fellow finish. Number 1.
If you ain't listening to Rush, then you must be living on the left coast, baby. my lunch and listen to Rush. Gonna eat my lunch and listen to Rush.
From the groove yard of forgotten favorites. And thank the Lord, Rush Limbaugh's on. Hi, this is Rush Limbaugh, author and narrator of the book Rush Revere and the Brave Pilgrims, Time Travel Adventures with Exceptional Americans. People have been after me to write another book for over 23 years, and the book market has been crowded. Everybody has written a book. So for me, it was been there, done that. But then my wife, Catherine, said, you know, there is a book that you could write, and it's aimed at some people that you really think need to hear the truth about American history, young people. And she was right. I think one of the biggest challenges we have is the deterioration of public education. And I don't believe that the truth of the founding of this country and its history is being taught. I think it's been corrupted and politicized. And so this book is the first of what hopefully will be many that are designed to get back to the real roots and the real history without any political bias of any kind about this country. And it really is no more complicated than that. The moments in this book that I really like, that when I narrate it or read it, that I really put my soul into, are those conversations between Rush Revere and William Bradford, when Bradford is explaining the troubles they all had when they first founded the colony, and how it didn't work out, and they tried to be fair with everybody, and everybody got an equal amount, outcome-based educations, everybody, outcome-based results, everybody got the same thing, and it didn't work. And then at the end of the book, same similar conversation when Bradford is recounting the blessings from God that the first Thanksgiving was really all about. Misunderstood part of Thanksgiving is that the Pilgrims were thanking the Indians for helping them to survive. And while that is true, and it did happen, the real purpose of Thanksgiving was Bradford and the Pilgrims thanking God for the guidance that they had received after all of the trials and tribulations. And the parts of the book where that is made clear in a conversational way, almost a direct quote from Bradford, those to me were the real money aspects of the book, where I really wanted to pour everything I could as the narrator, because those were exciting. I mean, that was the reason. Those 2 points there were the real reason for doing the book.
Well, welcome, everybody. It's great to have you with us today at Liberty University School of Business. Today we had the business convocation with Mr. James Golden, and I just want to give a brief overview of James's background. He's the executive producer of the Rush Limbaugh Show, goes by the pseudonym Bo Snerdley, but that show reaches 10 to 20 million people. Kind of interesting to think that I'm sitting with the producer of the biggest media show in history, period. That kind of came on me. I started doing my research, and that's pretty powerful stuff. And so the radio stations he's affiliated with hit 250 million people, and he works every day on content. He's been working side by side with Rush for 30 years on the daily news that affects all of our lives. And so as an educator, I like to be with people who are smarter than me. And so with that, I'd like to welcome Mr. James Golden.
I don't know where to go with that. Smarter than you, no way.
Oh, yeah.
No way, Professor and Congressman. And secondly, you know, when I hear you, I get a little bit embarrassed because let me just set the record really, really straight. Rush Limbaugh does not need a producer.
Yeah.
Doesn't need. So when he's away, maybe produce the show. When Rush is there, Rush is the show.
Yep.
He is the most incredible broadcaster of this and last century. He spanned. Now, when Rush first started, let me just since we're going to go there, let's go there for a minute. When Rush first started, he was on 56 radio stations. Within a few years, that grew to over 600 radio stations. When Rush first started, there were approximately 1,200 radio stations in the country that were doing a talk radio format. After Rush picked up his steam and got going, the rest has been history. There are over 12,000 now across the country that are doing the talk format. I was in New York recently. I ran into a friend of mine who is a high-powered executive over at Fox News, and one of the things that he said to me, and I won't call names, he said, if it wasn't for Rush, there would be no Fox News. And that is absolutely 100% true.
This is the equipment room.
This is balls and golf shoes. Oh, let me show you this thing. Not going to open the box, but my parents gave me this when I was 9 years old. Remco Caravelle. This was an AM transmitter. You could set this to transmit on any AM frequency. You'd pick one that there wasn't being used in your town, and you could broadcast over a radio inside your house.
Really?
And I would take it upstairs, and I would play DJ with it. I'd put this next to the turntable so it could pick up the music. And my mother would actually sit down and listen to me pretend to be a radio disc jockey. Well, I wasn't pretending. I actually had this thing was on the air. And it had a range of about, 300 feet.
Couple houses.
The neighbors could hear you if they happened to dial up the frequency. And somebody, I was describing having this one day on the radio some years ago.
That's pretty cool.
And
This was your start.
Yeah, this is it. This is how I actually was first on the air, actually. And somebody had one of these things and sent it to me, gave it to me, a listener.
Really?
Yeah, I had not kept it.
So that's where you got this?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Remco Caravelle. It would still work. If I...
You better keep that.
I don't intend to. This is going to go in the Limbaugh Broadcast Museum.
Exactly.
We collect artifacts.
When we came down the escalator, he liked my rather controversial speech. I made that speech that was a little bit on the controversial side, and he loved it. He was with me right from the beginning.
Limbaugh announced his lung cancer diagnosis last February, and one day later, Mr. Trump awarded him with the Medal of Freedom, the nation's highest civilian award, during the State of the Union address.
Rush Limbaugh, thank you for your decades of tireless devotion to our country.
His effect was on display, with Republicans standing and Democrats silent, some angry. Unusually, Limbaugh himself was speechless.
Listen to Rush God bless you, Rush
Oh no, it's a multiracial TV gang, including white guys.
Well, what do we got here? Let's beat him up, but not because of his color, because that doesn't matter to us.
Wow. Thanks, Rush.
It was nothing.